Hi, it's Elizabeth Duck, and in this video I am going to be answering my most highly requested question, which is, why do I have a disability? It's going to be a series talking about everything that's happened from the very beginning, because my disability started 3 days after I was born. I was born on June 22nd of 2002 at 28 weeks. When I was first born, I was actually healthy. I was premature and I was very tiny, only 1 pound, 3 ounces. But overall, I was healthy. Yeah, I was small, but I'm petite now, so it's not surprising. I was in the NICU because I was premature, but there was no major issues going on. My mom, however, was very sick. She was very sick after giving birth to me and before giving birth to me, and honestly, at the time, they weren't sure she was going to make it. My mom actually wanted me to go to a different hospital, but because they weren't sure she was going to make it, they didn't want to take her baby away from her with knowing the odds were she wasn't going to live. But luckily, she lived, so it's all good. I was stable until something went wrong. I developed E. coli from my umbilical cord. Newborn babies can't really get E. coli because E. coli had to come from an outside source, which we now know was somebody not washing their hands. And for people who don't know, E. coli is poop. We don't exactly know who it was from, but the infection spread through my body and caused severe damage. I developed osteomyelitis, which destroys part of my jaw, the growth plate in my jaw, the growth plate in my hip. I developed a hole in my heart, a fused neck, and I was just really, really sick and dying, honestly. Yes, I do have That is one thing I wanted to make clear. I am not a doctor. I'm not going into that much medical detail. This has been explained to me by my doctors and my mom, who is also a nurse practitioner, but I can only tell this from my perspective and how it affected my life. I can't tell this from a doctor's perspective because I don't know all of their medical knowledge, and I was a baby when it happened, so I can't remember it either. So I can only tell this from what I've heard and how it affected my life, not from an actual doctor's perspective. At the point the doctors believed I wouldn't survive, my parents refused to accept that. If you know my mom, you know that she's not backing down from a fight, and, they were like, they basically said to let me go, and that it was pointless and I was just gonna die. And that's really bothered me for a long time. It still kind of does. That they just felt it was pointless trying to help me and everything. However, my mom was like, that's not happening. She's my daughter. I'm not just gonna give up on her, obviously, like who would? My parents searched everywhere for someone willing to save me. They eventually found a doctor who was willing to take a chance for me. I had surgery to remove the clot in my heart because I ended up getting a hole in my heart from this infection. And that was obviously the main concern, was the hole in my heart, because, you need your heart to live. When I was just 3 months old, I was given a 5% chance of living in 2002, and they pretty much said, it was, I do this and it might work, and she gets 5% chance, or we do nothing and she's definitely gonna die. So my parents took the chance, and luckily that doctor, thank God, was willing to take the chance on me too. I wouldn't be here. I became the youngest and smallest baby to undergo open heart surgery at that time. I had a hole in my heart. I have a fused neck because of it. My one lung didn't grow. My one lung lobe hasn't grown since I was a baby. It's still very small. I'm probably very, very small because I could fit in the palm of my dad's hand at the time when I was born. And obviously I have all my hip issues. I completely lost my hip. And then I had jaw issues as well. Basically everything that happened to my hip happened to my jaw. Like, the destroying it part, I mean. Once I was stable enough, the doctors no longer thought I would die at that moment. They began addressing the damage that had been done from the infection. I struggled to crawl and I couldn't walk, and at first the doctors thought that was hip dysplasia, which hip dysplasia is when your hip is out of socket. Like, it's like, for whatever reason, your hip is not in place. However, when they did x-rays, they realized it was something more serious. I didn't have a hip, a socket, a growth plate. It was just all simply gone. All I had was the head of my femur bone for a hip and my pelvis. And I will show a picture here of what that looks like because I know it's hard to imagine. Eventually they made the decision to surgically connect my pelvis to my femur, hoping that that would give me some type of way to be able to crawl and walk. It was bone on bone, which, oh my gosh, is very painful. And yes, it's as painful as it sounds, but in all reality, it was also kind of impressive. My body adapted in an incredible way. Over time, it created its own form of a hip and socket out of what it had, which is kind of amazing what the human body can do when it has no other choice. Which mine didn't. Yes, bone on bone was very painful, and I do not recommend it if you are somebody who can get a hip replacement. I definitely recommend getting one, other than instead of having bone on bone pain. And people often do get bone on bone pain once they get older. It's basically like how our bones work. We have this like little cushion in here, basically, like a piece of foam almost, that like makes our bones glide. But when you have bone on bone, there's no gliding, so it's just like this. Instead of going like this, nice and easy, it's like... And especially those two bones weren't meant to be together. There's supposed to be a whole bunch of bones in between there, so it did the best it could, I guess. Even though I don't remember the events because I was a baby, they shaped my entire life. Someone's mistake nearly cost me my life, cost me chronic pain, lifelong medical challenges, multiple surgeries, having to relearn how to walk, having to relearn how to ride. And that's a heavy thing to carry, especially knowing it all started because of simple, improper hand washing. For a long time, it has and still does affect me emotionally that people believed I wasn't worth saving at first and they couldn't just do their job correctly. And, you know, I was a baby. I didn't do anything. What did I do to deserve this? I was just born. I was only 3 days old. Like, what did I do for you to not care about me as much as you care about, for example, your own child? I was a harmless kid. I didn't do anything. I was a baby. And, my parents believed in me and fought for me, but it still left me questioning at times. That's something I've had to work through as I grew older and still continue to work through. But here's the thing. I can't change what happened, and I do refuse to let it ruin my life. My story shaped me, but it doesn't define my limits. If anything, it taught me how strong people can be and how much your actions do truly affect others. Which they do. They really do. Even if you don't think they do, they do. After that, my life became a series of hospital visits, surgeries, appointments, and figuring out everything that needed to be fixed. I spent a lot of my childhood in the hospital, not as much as others have, but I still did spend a lot of time having surgeries and not getting to live a normal life when all I really wanted to do was run around and play like all the other kids. You know, I just wanted to be able to ride my horse as much as everybody else can ride their horse. Why when I ride my horse once do I have to wait for a week to be able to ride when other people can just ride every day and be fine? And I'm gonna say there's not anger there sometimes, or sadness even, because there is. And I do feel it's very unfair, because I've never done anything. But it's just what it is, and I have, or am, learning to accept it. And I want to move forward with my life. I have my pain stimulator now. I was able to ride Stormy last night. I'm able to record this, and I rode yesterday. I mean, that's a huge improvement for me, especially with it being this cold out still. It's a huge improvement for me. So, no, I still can't live like everybody else can, and unfortunately, I don't think I ever will. But I definitely can do more than I ever could, and my pain stimulator definitely helped me. And I do think I'm doing better, and I want to share my story. I want to share my story to help others. I want to share my story for other people who've gone through things, whether it's medical things or other things, you know. Life can be hard, life can be rough, and I want to share my story and encourage others to always keep going. You don't realize how strong you are. You're so much stronger than you realize. This isn't a deep medical explanation. I am not a doctor. I can't describe it like a doctor. I'm a cowgirl. I love horses. I ride horses. I train horses. I play with horses. Horses are my life. And this is the simple story told from my perspective, and I'm finally ready to read and share it with the world. If you'd like to follow along, this is my story. This is my medical series that I am calling Life is a Ride. It would mean a lot to me if you watched, listened, or read alongside as I continue my journey and followed me on Instagram. Thank you so much for being here. I hope my story inspires you to keep going. Even while life gets hard, you are so much stronger than you think. And you really are. You really are so much stronger than you think. My story will not only be out here on YouTube, it will be in podcast form, and I will be writing it on Wattpad for the people who like to read better than listen and or watch. My story will be called Life is a Ride, and this was part 1 of Life is a Ride, how it all began. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to never give up, and remember you are so much stronger than you think you are. You can do this, you can get there, and you can definitely live your dreams. Just keep going.